12 a.m. And we're going to start with the approval of minutes from the July 21st meeting and August 2018 meeting. We had, actually, do we have enough now with counting on here?
Yeah, we have a quorum now.
This is amazing.
And I can't.
You gotta have
I
a
can't
quorum
vote
of the
on it.
people that were there.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
the annoying part.
Oh, right,
They're the ones that would be able to look at the minutes and say they're accurate or not.
right.
Yeah, last meeting we do, so we can start with the August 18th. Are there any questions or concerns? You cannot vote on
Right,
this.
right.
Do we have a motion to approve the August 18th?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
All set.
All in favor?
Aye. I abstain.
And for... I don't think we have the minutes. I don't need the minutes from the last, other meeting, the July 21st one. They were in our last packet. Do we,
Oh, here, right here, August 16th?
no, we just did that.
No.
Okay.
No, they would have been in our previous packet. We can push that to the next meeting again.
All right.
I hate to keep doing that, but
Right, yeah, okay.
I'd say let's just push it.
That's fine.
We don't have it. Okay. We will move the approval of the July 21st meeting minutes to the next meeting. On to item number 2, Dylan, the Executive Director's Report.
Sure, just real quick, we're gonna have to have, I think, a special session this upcoming, over the next month, to discuss, some things that are happening around property that the LDC owns, and that it's adjacent to as well. There's just not enough time in one of these meetings to go to it.
We have under new business, we have an item that we can go into executive session for if you want to book that towards the end of the meeting.
Yeah, let's do that. And then the other things that are happening, there's nothing to report sort of on One Monument Square. There's also really, not much to report. Well, we'll get into the, district geothermal in a second because that's coming up in terms of contracts in the next section, so we'll get into that as well. Aside from that, everything is pretty copacetic. That's it.
Everything for the Executive Director's Report.
There you
That's
go.
That's a short one.
Yeah, I mean, why beat around the bush?
Shortest ever.
On to new business, so we'll go right into the district geothermal contracts.
So we received our Category C district geothermal contract, which we've been working on for a very long time. Thank you, Justin, for all that help. We have that to be approved, which is fantastic. That gives us $4 million to get started on the work that will lead to construction. It's actually for the implementation of our plan for the first geothermal phase that's going to be done in Riverfront Park. That also includes doing some renovations to the park as it's done, which is going to get it closer to the final product that we're working towards as well. It's overall going to be probably around a $12 million project. We have to do final design still. We're doing it, well, I can't say we're doing it in line with National Grid because the PSC, which is the Public Service Committee, essentially, or Commission. Yeah, sorry. They gave this sort of quasi-loose kind of yes for approvals, which we weren't counting on them doing, essentially, which means that when National Grid submits their U10, that's the Utility Thermal Energy Network plan to work with us, they would be doing distribution, we'd be doing the production. When that happened, essentially, they just wrote back saying, yeah, you guys are cleared to go to the next step, which is design. And so we were anticipating them saying, yeah, your whole plan is cleared, you can then sign a lease with an off-taker agreement with National Grid, and then from there, you guys are off to the races building this thing. They gave us kind of like a loose yes, which is, they gave it to everybody. They decided that they wanted to sort of hold back a little bit, and that's going to create some issues, I think, but at the same time, the project's moving forward. We're very happy to get that $4 million from NYSERDA. It's going to help us move, and we're the only ones that are getting $4 million.
Is it a grant?
It's a grant, yep, part of the thermal
So not
energy network.
payable.
Yeah, we're way ahead of everybody else, and that's
No
why
match on it.
Right, no match, nothing,
Yeah.
just a grant, good.
And
Yep.
it's got a series of 10 steps in it that span from early design through permitting, through the leasing and financing, and then into construction and then commissioning.
Okay,
The way they set it up is, after a lot of back and forth, out of the $4 million, there's a go, no-go bright line in that scope of work after, I think it's task C or milestone, or 4. Everyone pauses, and then there's feasibility, there's financing, we have to have seeker in place, we have to have the city council approve a lease. And this is all by hopefully December 31, the schedule of those events. We can shift a little bit into early January, February, but the contract that's being put before the board today is to approve the $4 million grant, of which we know we can get to $1.44 million. Of that, in the grant, we're authorized to engage Siemens and CHA, an owner's rep, and then our design engineer. And they've set budgets, and we're finalizing those. There's some shifting sands in terms of exact line item amounts to go to each subcontractor. But right now, the resolution authorizes you to sign the $4 million grant. It appropriates $1.44 million of an LDC budget that is going to be primed with the grant funds when they come. And once we have those funds in our hands, we can pay the contractors and lawyers and CPAs and financial advisors and bond people and underwriters and all that stuff.
Who's gonna manage all that? Like project manager?
Siemens is appointed
No,
under
for
the...
the city or for,
Yeah, well,
The LDC.
he's the
Yeah,
executive director
right.
of the LDC. Siemens is the project manager and owner's rep, reporting to him.
good,
And then CHA is the project engineer, reporting to him.
But we don't have those contracts today, so what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to, probably during the special session, hopefully we can get that.
We're proving today. They're 95% done.
Okay.
do you have the bandwidth, to- I mean, that's a lot of
I've been working on
bandwidth.
it for 3 years, man.
Okay, so you have the bandwidth to get it done?
Yeah, we're through a lot of the harder stuff. at this
Okay.
point. We're gonna get into the construction of this, that's why we have Siemens on board.
Okay,
Siemens is the owner's rep,
Right.
and they have a scope of work to be the worrier and the manager and
Okay.
coordinate meetings. And I think what will happen, outside of these board meetings, there may be an off cycle of every 2 weeks where we need to get a forum to get reports and updates and then maybe authorize certain things to happen because of timing. One of the first things that they're going to go right into design. We have to have a kickoff meeting with NYSERDA, and I think to assure the timeliness and being able to move forward on a very compressed schedule to get approvals done, this board will declare itself lead agency under seeker and hopefully compress our environmental review in October and November. And
Good.
then after that, seeker will be done, and we just got to get to the council with a drafted lease and some intelligent design.
Drafting that for Rick, or is that already in his hands?
And it's rolling around in people's heads right now. We have state legislation, and we have some general concepts on a ground lease.
Right.
We just need to put it together.
Okay.
On a separate parallel track, we're talking to National Grid. I don't have as much anxiety about the PSC approval, because once we go through this next 2 to 3 months of design, feasibility, financing plan, and structure, we'll have an MOU with National Grid that they can turn to the PSC and say, this is how it really works. And I think then they'll,
I hope so.
you know
That's
what
the
I mean?
hope.
Because right now it's a little,
Our financing depends on it,
yeah,
so that's
it's
the
a little
only issue.
conceptual at this
Right.
point, so.
And there's,
That's the long and short of it. We're looking for approval to sign the grant with NYSERDA, engage CHA and Siemens as the 2 primary consultants. CHA is going to sub some of the environmental review work to Labella, which is fine. And then we'll have a lot more going on with this project, kind of driving agenda, so it might require some meetings
it will.
outside of cycle. Even if it's sub-forum or full board meetings, we'll probably need to
Right.
gather together and get people updated more. There'll be a little bit more work for Matt in terms of setting up a separate account, like a force account almost, that's project specific,
Right,
for funds to come into and go out of, so we can audit it all.
right.
It's a cool project. This is just the big first step, so.
Yeah, and this is the first of its kind, so we're really kind of setting precedents here. Hopefully this also leads to a sustainable financial model for the LDC going forward, which can then be invested back into the community, into the city. Okay, so,
I have a general question about the payment structure, like this, the NYSERDA grant, I'm just not familiar with how they pay this stuff out. It's like how much time is
Reimbursement.
between,
there's no guarantees.
yeah.
Yeah, well, they set it up in a way that's super flexible. Each milestone that they define includes some deliverables. So just using the one of the larger ones in the early phases is, the
The
final
number.
design sets.
Right. Forgot
We
that.
submit some design, and that's gonna be done between Siemens and CHA primarily, but once that design
Yeah.
is submitted to NYSERDA, they start reimbursing large chunks of funding, which at that point, they don't want the bills that we paid in the traditional sense of reimbursement, they just want the work product.
Yeah.
And then once the work product's submitted, we hope that their reimbursement process is pretty quick, so we stay within 30 or 60 with the consultant.
Right, so it's like, but in a sense, like, we have to have the cash, just to keep things progressing, we have to have the cash for, like, consultant payouts. and
There's
things
gonna be a
like that
cash
before
flow,
we-
there's gonna be a cash flow
Yeah.
crunch, we're gonna have to do
Yeah.
it, we're gonna have to do a budget to demonstrate sort of, how the cash flow is gonna work for all this. There's gonna be additional overhead we're gonna have to be paying, things like insurance, stuff like that, so we're gonna have to be managing all of that, and that's where we'll work with Matt, to kind of see exactly where we might have trouble, where we might get stuck, you know, without cash coming in for a little bit. I mean, there's bound to be a couple of areas where we're gonna be a little bit dry.
Yeah, like, the reporting ones are small, but like, some of them are, you know,
Big.
400 plus K.
And they're gonna take time, yeah.
We set up, and just for, and to get to, I think, what your point is, we set up the draft agreements to state that our obligations and liabilities are only as good as the cash that comes from NYSERDA.
Yes, yeah, that's,
So we protected ourselves in that way,
Yeah.
which puts, I mean, they're coming in at risk, and, you know, they're waiting for the check just as much as we are.
yeah.
So it's on the website?
That's, it's
Yeah,
something, it's pretty standard, it's something that I'm not used to working with, that's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. That's great. I mean, there's a lot to flip through. I don't, you were mentioning that this is at a point where this could be at a resolution today.
Yeah.
Is it?
And we have the resolution here in the packet, I think.
Category C, definitely.
Yeah, what were you saying that was at like the 95% point?
Oh, the actual agreements with Siemens and CHA, there's some line item numbers. We've maxed out the appropriations, so we'll never spend more than that. And it's just a function of out of the $1.4 million available, there's about $1.1 million that they're identifying as needs under their respective scopes of work. And we're trying to figure out with our cash flow, you know, is it $1.05 million or is it $1.1 million? You know, and we're grinding down on a little bit on the numbers. And I'm hoping we can resolve that this afternoon, so. In lieu of losing a month, it's the concept of approving the contracts in substantially the form that's which is presented with the meeting, which I have here, so.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering, is it worth bringing that up today too to vote on?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The resolution
So we don't
includes,
slow it down.
the Cat C contract with NYSERDA and then 2 agreements to get them bound. And we literally need to have our kickoff meeting like next week, I think, or we start losing calendar,
Yeah,
so.
I agree.
Also, are we, officially, this is the Clean Thermal Energy Network project?
Yeah.
Are we, this is a really side question, I'm just curious for like marketing purposes and stuff, we've been calling it district geothermal
Yeah.
outwards, like, is it gonna change to that? Or is it more like,
Everyone's got different nomenclature. I think we're gonna be stick to something that's kind of simple for people. Troy's clean energy, or district clean energy, or district,
Yeah.
geothermal. I think people understand what geothermal is kind of tangentially, but like, when you start getting into things like, what is district energy, what is district utility, heating and cooling, like,
yeah,
there's a lot of ways to describe this. We don't need to get into all that craziness.
yeah, I like the resolution, name, that's why I was asking.
Oh, yeah,
That's what NYSERDA's calling it.
yeah.
What we market it as, I mean,
It's a bunch of engineers.
Troy Cooling, Troy's Cool, I don't know, what do you call it? Troy Energy,
Yeah,
Troy Energize,
You
I
can
don't
lead the
know.
marketing campaign, yeah.
Some committee's gonna, you know, throw that around with a
Well,
tester
we're gonna
or
be
something.
working, as it's mentioned in here, we're gonna be working very closely with the Sustainability Task Force and meeting on them a little bit to get some of this stuff together. There's also gonna be a learning lab that's built into the main sort of, what do you call it, into the main pump station that's gonna be leased out to the National Grid eventually, and there's gonna be a bunch of displays there, so it's gonna be interesting, but there's a lot of opportunities. We just gotta get there first with this initial sort of, $4 million go, no-go.
Where's the local Siemens office?
Airline Drive, Airline Boulevard.
Okay,
You know what?
they're in Latham, yeah.
Far away.
Okay, Latham, okay.
Love to get them over here.
That's sort of where I was.
Yep. You know what they do, and we can have this conversation.
See, see what I'm saying?
They could use a place especially to store parts, because they do a lot of, like, I forgot what you call it, but like basically where you have, a lot of, like, parts that you regularly, like, available to you in different warehouses so that you can basically ship things quickly. What's up, Kiani? How are you?
Hi, how are you guys? Sorry, I'm a little late.
Yeah. I chose
The
that.
wrong link was on the website. When I changed the meeting date, it changed the whole link, and I didn't realize it until I noticed it wasn't on.
Okay.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Sorry, Sam.
I don't know if she can hear you. Do you want to turn up the volume on that just a little bit?
Kiana, you can hear us, right?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Danae's a little hard to
Okay.
hear, but everyone else pretty clear.
Danae said it's her fault, sorry.
Technical snafu.
Does the LDC have to have a separate insurance policy from the city or something like that?
NYSERDA requires us to have our own liability insurance on their standard boilerplate, which we don't carry. We have property casualty insurance, which I'm surprised for, like King Fuels, they don't have like a liability provider there.
And we have D&O too, right?
We have D&O, and that's
Okay.
through both the city, and I think we have D&O that's directly engaged by the LDC, which
There used to be.
is for your purposes,
Right,
right?
it used to be, exactly, yeah.
But I think the requirements of NYSERDA for us to have liability are a little higher than our current stuff, so we gotta bind that. That's one of the little cash flow things that we're thinking
Right,
about.
right.
So. Beyond that, the contracts require CHA and Siemens to indemnify us and insure us as well. So we have a backstop, you know, for the surveyor that falls in a hole type of thing. But, we're, I think, in good shape in that regard. And we're trying to identify the costs outside of grant, or not in our portion of the grant, that we might have to kind of pick up and put into our budget to the extent that we have room.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I was just
Oh, I
curious
can
about
hear,
the
yeah.
insurance. I was just curious about the insurance and the paying, the schedule of
Yeah.
payments.
Yeah, we have a draft. There's a couple items that we're focusing on scope, like the seeker review and some of the financing plan in terms of who's at the table and who's, you know, getting paid out. There's $100,000 for the financing plan, and we're trying to figure out of the respective roles between the owner and the consultants, you know, how that gets whacked up.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're still all within the $1,440,000, and that's all pre-development, no hard construction. It's pre-seeker, so we're kind of all in the studying stage until we hit NYSERDA's go, no-go, and at that point, it's a different environment where we're permitted, we're leased, and then we're putting out construction documents to bid. It's a very different world in terms of how the project looks and how it comes together, so. At that point, we need to be able to pay for the whole thing, so.
Right.
Well, before we, bring it to a vote on resolution, Chris, Andy, Kiani, any questions, comments?
Well, I'm worried about cash flow on it, and what are we, you know, what are our risk and grants, and, you know, grant is grants, but we've got to make sure that we're covered for, you know, there's a lot of details when you get into construction management with, you know, bandwidth, timing. I
Yeah,
just wanna
that may
make
not
sure.
be till next summer or fall.
Okay.
Before we get to hard numbers and
Okay.
hard deployment.
Is,
Right now, we're all inside study money.
Right,
And it's just from Dylan's perspective, trying to manage, and Matt, certainly, the cash flow. There may be instances with each milestone in the contract where we're focused on the financing plan, or we're focused on seeker, or working hard on the leases. Once we hit those milestones and they're done, then NYSERDA reimburses. The trick is,
yeah.
I'm willing to wait, it's fine. You know, we'll get pregnant. It's just if we hire an FA, or if we hire, you know, a title person, or someone that may have an appetite for a shorter leash, we just gotta make sure that we can absorb that with the earlier phases when they come through.
our original plan to sort of handle all this was basically to use Siemens through their ability to sort of cash flow these projects for us, right? And sort of do that turnkey kind of development project. We're stepping away from that now, and this is sort of one of the things that happens as a result of that. At the same time, it gives us a little bit more clarity and control over what's actually happening, how much money is getting spent, et cetera. So there's a little bit of give and take. I think once we get to construction, we might have to go back to that kind of model. We'll see.
We can do a design build.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the goal here, 'cause
Right.
yeah.
Well, design, build, operate, right? 'Cause,
Well, an O&M will come out of that,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's I mean, that's the nice thing about these systems, is there's very little M.
okay,
The billing will be handled by National Grid, except that you're billing one person, which is National Grid. So they're gonna be dealing with the customers up front. I mean, I like to say we thought about a lot of this already, but it's gonna be relatively, once it gets going, it's gonna be relatively,
And once we get a hard agreement with National Grid, there's a whole different kind of cash flow model involved. It's just between here and there when we're studying, I wouldn't say there's risk because the grant's there, it's just the timing of the flow of the grant steps, which it's not insurmountable. So,
right.
just need to be careful.
I have like a kind of a with working with National Grid in terms of like, are we is LDC or the city going to own the geothermal and just like making sure that that continues? That's something that I'm personally really
Yeah,
interested in.
Yeah, the things that the LDC will be building once we get to the construction of the generation asset, which quickly summarized is a bunch of wells underneath Riverfront Park, some connecting pipes into the staircase between the Art Center and Bonaccio's building, Dauchi and No Fun or whatever it is. And then that connects over into the city's ownership side of the atrium, where there'll be another pump station. So, quickly summarized, the LDC is leasing the underground portions of Riverfront Park from the city. It's leasing underneath the staircase from the city, and then leasing a box in the atrium from the city. Those things and all those assets will be owned by the LDC as the owner. And then everything that it generates will be off-taken by National Grid, who will put the cold water in their pipes to distribute into buildings that use it for geothermal heating and cooling. So the eventual agreement between National Grid and the LDC will be to pay for our energy. It's as if we're an electrical generation plant, a gas-fired, or we're a solar field, or whatever. It's like an energy power purchase agreement. So they're going to be paying for taking our water, moving it around in a system, and putting it back in our pipes, in the simplest terms.
And they deal with the customers.
Yeah, they bill their customers for the incremental amount of, and it's by a square footage when you retrofit a building for geothermal. So they're going to generate income on their end as a utility to put energy into buildings. We're going to charge them to take the energy on a commodity basis. Interestingly enough, the PSC has signaled an approval to not only have National Grid pay us for the gross energy that we're producing out of our field, but also capital charges. In other words, we're going to have an agreement with National Grid that in its simplest terms says they're going to pay us for our debt service and probably our O&M, and then pay for energy. So they're on a loss leader until the system really generates and gets a lot of, head count, if you will, or building square footage in the system.
Right.
And they're being forced under their tariffs, not only them, but every major regulated utility in New York is being encouraged in a very direct way by the PSC to put these kind of projects out as tests. We're the farthest along in the entire state. So in other simplest terms, National Grid is being somewhat coaxed and forced into investing heavily into a project that is somewhat speculative, but that speculation on their part that is somewhat coerced helps us balance our costs. So we're going to build something that's 14 million bucks, but we have the regulated utility behind us paying all of our bills. And that's really where the National Grid agreement boils down to, is to put us on a cost-neutral basis.
So just a couple of things to acknowledge. We're the only ones in the state that are actually doing this, continuing to own one of the assets as part of it. We were originally envisioning owning all of it and trying to do all of it ourselves, then having Siemens basically do an O&M. But I do want to give Chris a shout out because he helped reconnect us again with National Grid to the point that they were willing to come in and step in with the U10 policy that came out. Once the law came out, they were willing to do it. Of course, they wanted the whole thing, and we said over our dead bodies. And that's the only reason. So now we're talking to Rochester, we're talking to Utica, we're talking to a number of other places, saying to them, look, this is the model that we think works the best, hoping that other people will adopt this so that it doesn't just become the same thing we have now currently, which is that the utility owns everything. We'd really like to, and I think NYSERDA is very into that as well. So we're trying very hard to make this work so that we can demonstrate a model going forward that basically proves that this is the best way for cities to go forward. I mean, it could potentially put millions of dollars back into the budgets of a lot of different cities that have had trouble raising revenue for a long time.
Yeah, it's long-term, 100-year infrastructure.
Yeah. And wall greening at the same time. So, I mean, to me, it's the perfect project, but
Is the contract set up where, I mean, is the revenue be increasing, or is it fixed for 10 years or 5 years, or is there
Once we put our financing plan together, we're gonna have a proposed amortization, and, you know, let's say we have to borrow early, we're gonna have basically offtake for, you know, debt service is gonna go that way.
Right.
And pay our lenders, to the extent that we have third-party grants come in. In other words, we get to go, no-go, and everything looks great, we go back to NYSERDA. We go to the Green Bank, we go to other third-party grant sources, so we minimize our borrowing. Or to the extent that we borrow up front, supported by National Grid, we do a major knockdown, and then we're left with a very small nut.
good?
The initial and early reads, where we're exchanging notes and concepts with National Grid, they were keeping a net level debt service model for the capital charge all the way through, no matter where our debt was.
Mhm.
That may change. It may decline a little bit with capital charges, and they're gonna pay a somewhat constant or a market rate for the offtake.
Okay.
for them, it's all about reporting back to the PSC, because all the money that they're spending on this project essentially comes from the gas payers' rate case. So everyone that pays into that has a certain percentage in it in their bill that says this is for, you know, pilot projects, that kind of stuff. So that's the money that's paying for this. It's also gonna help pay for potentially the retrofits of the different buildings that would then become off-takers. So that's a huge boon for some of these projects, because now you're talking about a $5 million system that National Grid might be picking up the cost of. So if there's a building that's getting redone, that could be getting, you know, any sort of gas furnace, anything else getting put in, but now all of a sudden National Grid's gonna say, hey, look, we'll pay for it if you're gonna put in to hook up the
Big rebates.
geothermal system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge,
And if those tax credits, we get clarity on the federal tax credits for renewable energy, and there's a concept called chaining,
yeah,
where if you're the owner of a building and you invest in that kind of retrofit or infrastructure, you not only can get utility-based rebates to reimburse your costs, you can also get tax credits at the federal level.
Right.
What they're doing and what the industry is trying to do is, to the extent that that owner of the building can't use those tax credits, or maybe they're good to them or maybe they're not, you can have a developer come in with a relationship like a Siemens, and they go in, they construct the retrofit as a design-build developer. The owner can chain those credits to that developer, so it becomes a way for the system to be paid for and compensated, really with no cash implication to the owner.
similar to CP.
Very little, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the complexity of the stuff we're looking at to build a system too. We can chain our credits.
right, up,
So if we have an investor come in and say, listen, you're getting $4 or $5 million in tax credits, they're no good to you, LDC. There's ways that they're gonna come in as cash, which we could use to knock out debt.
right.
But if there's a upfront tax credit equity deal, basically, where someone comes in and gives us cash upfront for 90 cents on the dollars, and then we chain up or assign those tax credits to them, we eliminate the need to get in and float construction financing.
Right.
It kind of knocks down our debt on the early side. So those are the complex things that we really need to throw our head into to put the financing plan together and make sure that it all stands up and all that.
I didn't know that was an option, that's.
The
really
IRA
interesting.
makes us a whole lot better. I mean,
Yeah.
the reality is that one tax.
The whole industry is pregnant waiting for that ruling to come out.
Right,
In
'cause
terms of
that
whether it's
does.
a chain.
I mean, the reality is that for a nonprofit or for a city organization or municipality to be able to basically cash out their tax credits they would be getting normally, you know, that they normally wouldn't actually have any access to, I mean, that's fantastic. So we actually have the ability to cash in those tax credits where normally you would be exempt from them. So there's a lot we can do with that. It's gonna be a pretty significant amount of capital. All right, so I think that's district geothermal contracts. Do you want to do two separate resolutions?
One resolution
Right.
approves NYSERDA and the two contracts.
Got it.
That gets the ball rolling.
Right, this resolution that we're gonna vote on is for, by parts, the undertaking of the planning and design, the acceptance of the grant from NYSERDA, the selection and engagement of a project manager and engineer, the establishment of the capital project and budget for the project, and the execution of all delivery-related documents. Do we have a motion for approval of this resolution?
I'll make a motion.
In a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just county is now absent.
Keani had to go.
Oh.
To bounce out, yeah. We're talking about, just not to detour it, but each of the IDA, LDC, and CRC adopting a policy in the next month to allow remote meeting participation if you have an exigent need, if you're sick, have a childcare or some sort of issue where you can't be in the room, COVID type thing.
For the record, I don't have COVID.
I don't say this because of Dylan, but it'll allow like a situation if county were ill or had a situation where we have a quorum struggle where someone can dip in and participate and vote.
You could FaceTime from a deposition.
Right.
So before going into South Troy, there's something that's sort of related to the district geothermal that we're adding to our agenda for new business right now, right? Or is this something we want to do in executive session? What's the?
I think that's South Troy, right?
Yeah, in the
Oh, there's
interest
just-
of,
okay.
friends that might be in the room, would it make sense to move the grants now and then?
Yeah, let's do that.
Save the rest to the rest,
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that.
if we have time for the rest?
Yes, let's move on to old business, table the South Troy discussion, move on to old business, which is the community business investment grant, round 3 application.
A lot of old business. Keep looking for the list of,
That's the extra packet that I handed out, 'cause.
Yeah, the little guy.
Yeah.
Thanks for making it separate.
oh, okay.
Where is that?
It's this one.
You don't have, let's see, it looks like,
I was wondering where it was.
Extra, 'cause I thought I printed 6, and.
I do not, and it's not in the back of mine.
That's okay. That's fine. I think we're good. Yep.
All right, so there were 4 applications that were, approved by the selection committee, which met on August 16th. I'm happy to say that Avery is one of them. He's here with us today. Avery, do you want to maybe go first? Because I think your project is really sort of, I guess it best demonstrates, I guess, what we're trying to do with this work, right? I mean, because ultimately you're a business in Lansingburg, and this has been a tough environment for you to grow in, essentially.
It has, yeah, I mean, we're an indoor urban vertical mushroom farm and mycological education center, and we have gotten a lot of inroads in the restaurants. We actually just got a contract with the zone catering of food, so like our demand has outstripped our ability to supply. And one of the things that we're asking for is this grant to help us buy additional sterilization and equipment and a mixer bagger thing that will help accelerate the process and cut down the time that it takes our staff to create all of the things, basically plant the mushrooms. And the influx of money would really go very far in allowing us to cut our costs and then increase our supply so that we can, move to the people that want it. Mushrooms are a huge part of the reduction in animal protein reliance our culture has had for the last hundreds of years, and we're a smokestackless industry, and there's a myriad of other projects that we're engaged in, and one of which is working with Ecovative. As soon as the city allocates some South Troy brownfield sites, we're gonna work on remediating some of the heavy metals and petroleum-based toxins using mycelium. And I don't know, we're working on expanding our capacity at the building, and this will help us expand much faster.
What is your production, how big is your production space now?
We.
I know where you are, you're on River Street, yeah.
Yep. So I think we're in 3,000 square feet, and we have the capacity, we're in the process of buying the building.
Okay.
And we have basically the upstairs is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and we're gonna turn the 2 bedrooms, which are quite large bedrooms, into about this much space, into 2 more grow rooms. But because we're going vertically, we have the rooms filled with shelves, it's gonna probably more than double our capacity to produce.
That's great.
Mhm.
So that's one of the, it's one of the 4. The other ones are the Fat Crow Gourmet, that's up on Congress Street. If you go up there, they have amazing barbecue sauce, along with a bunch of other sauces. And what they're actually doing is they're gonna be doing more of a kitchen and delivery service, not delivery, sorry, production service, and then packaging for them to be able to do more wholesaling of their sauces and sort of ready-made products. They also sell like a lot of kitchen items, like things that you use to cook, like, things you would never even think of, like these bread knives that actually like slice it automatically. Very cool stuff that you kind of have to see. I can't even describe it really, but they do a lot of really neat stuff up there, and it's really kind of anchored along with Muja and a couple other places as well. Love of Fuzz. But what I love about what we're doing right now is we're kind of re-hitting some of these blocks for the second time, third time already. Now that we're only in round 3, we're really concentrating some of our investments into certain blocks that I think will have an exponential impact, because we're not just scattershotting this, like, throughout the entire city, one little bit here, one little bit there. We're concentrating it. I think that's gonna bear out a much more positive for us. So the Fat Gourmet is one, Collar City Mushrooms is the other. Ferry Street, Sunheat's Farm and Kitchen, she has a bunch of work that needs to get done, including putting in a heat pump, which will enable her to provide better air conditioning and heating for the space, as well as doing some work out front on the concrete steps, and putting back in the original iron railing, which will be nice. And then the Ruck has to redo a roof and some air conditioning. A lot of that's not gonna be visible, but what will be visible is the redoing of that beautiful bay window that they have out on 3rd Street. Is it 3rd? Yeah, out on 3rd Street. So that's gonna be really nice to see that restored. Additionally, obviously, the roof is really important. It's just not the kind of thing you see from the street. So, we're gonna be helping them stay dry.
Ferry. Bay window?
The bay window is actually over the sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the Ruck is like 3 buildings, if you think about
Oh,
it.
yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of the window at Sunheath.
Oh, yeah, right.
One question, this is the first 2 rounds that we had. The applicants, is there a reason the total product cost is like less than this round?
Because they have smaller projects.
Got it.
So
Just a coincidence?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
If you want to hear the total right now, with this round 3, we'll be at $341,453 committed in grants, which would then get $682,905 total committed to projects in Troy.
Mhm.
So almost $1 million. That's a pretty good return. There are a number of products that were tabled because they weren't ready or didn't have what they needed, that the committee felt needed to go back and sharpen their pencils or do more work before coming back to us. And we're still working with them pretty closely. So.
What's the score that we're looking for? Just to refresh my memory.
Above 50.
Right, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. We are still in this round. It looks like we're still looking at all of them in
Yeah.
the same resolution.
I did this yesterday while I was.
Yeah. I would like to see, I mean, if this doesn't, personally, nothing in this stands
I
out
will
to me, but I
separate it.
would like to separate that
I
in
will.
case there's anything withstanding on a single. I don't have any conflicts with any of these. I don't think anyone else here does, so, but just in case for the future, it'd be good. I don't have any further questions or comments on this, so if we'd like to go forward with the resolution for the LDC to authorize the award, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
And just counting is absent today.
Yep.
Congratulations. And thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to move to financials?
Let's do it.
Okay. On to financials.
First report, statement of financial position. As of August 31st, we had total assets of $3,916,352, with $252,939 in cash. Liabilities of $1,723,008, which left us with a fund balance of $2,193,344. There was no significant changes to the statement of financial position in the month of August. Our final report is the statement of activity. For the month of August, we had a surplus of $10,207. Most significant source of revenue was the monthly license fee, and the largest expense was in the professional fees.
Great. Any questions or comments on the finances? Nope. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
In a second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
So, how would you like to handle the next part?
Go into executive session. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
For the purposes of discussing the proposed acquisition or disposition of real estate that might affect the price.
Right, and we're gonna basically come out of executive session and just adjourn the meeting, so it's not like there'll be anything after, just so everybody knows.
Okay.
No action contemplated.
Yeah.
Great. All,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Yes.
Well, but you're gonna have to come back in
But the,
Yeah.
with the
yeah,
recording.
yeah, is there a way to pause it? No.
It's a big loan that we have. How many more years we have on that?
Yeah, we do that.
2? In the end,
2 to
right?
3, we're, down to like 480.
You can unmute it, thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and, now we're out of executive session, we're gonna motion for adjournment,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye. Right, see you guys. So if you need us, if we need to have another